We're going to be talking about nonfiction text features. We know that nonfiction is real, that meaning that an author has written the book to teach you something. It has real facts and it's based on true information. When an author writes a nonfiction text, they realize that you might have a hard time reading the information. It might be all new to you. So, authors give you little tips and strategies to help you through the text. We call these the text features. They are the tools that the author has given you to help you understand more about their topic. When an author does a nice job with their text features, it helps the reader to really understand what they're trying to teach them. Let's go through some of these today because these tools will help you to become a much better reader and help you to understand some of the information in your nonfiction text. We'll begin with the title. This is something that I think you're familiar with already. The title means the name of the book. We see title in both fiction and nonfiction text, but in a nonfiction book, a title often tells us the main idea or what the book is mostly about. So already, if I read the title of this book, What Comes from Plants, I can guess that this book is going to teach me about the kinds of things that I would get from a plant, right? So I already have a clue right on that very first page. In nonfiction text, authors often use a photograph to help us as well. And a photograph can give us a picture of something. So if we weren't sure what the word plant meant, I can look at this picture and see a picture of a plant. And now I understand. When we open a book, within the first few pages, we will often find a table of contents in a nonfiction text. We can also find a table of contents in a fiction text, but in a nonfiction text, it can help us to identify some of the main details that the author is going to be talking about in the book. So our table of contents really just means, what are we going to find inside this book? Contents means what's inside. And a table means a way of organizing that information. So when I look at a table of contents, on one side, I'm going to see what that section is about. And on the other side, I'm going to find the page number where that information begins. So if I'd like to find out about cloth and clothing, I could begin at page 10, and I know that a new topic will begin on page 11, which is medicines. So my table of contents helps me to understand what's inside the story and where I can find that information. As you move through the book, you will find headings. A heading comes at the top of a section of the text. So the author takes all of the information they're trying to teach you and breaks it up into little parts, and then gives a name to the little part. So you know that when you read that part of the book, it will all be about this, the heading. So if I know that this section is called building materials, I should expect that everything I read underneath that heading relates to or connects to building materials. When we pause at a new heading and think back about what we already read, we can check to make sure that we really understood and that our reading and understanding connected back to that heading. Within each section, authors also use bold print. This is where the author makes their letters darker within a word. When we're talking and we want to show you something's really important, we might get a little louder or make our voice change and show you this is important. But when we read, the author doesn't have a voice, so they can't tell you what's important, right? Instead, the author uses a different trick. They make the letters darker and bolder, and that kind of yells to the reader, "This is print. And when you see it, you know that you should really be paying attention. Make sure you really think about what that word might mean and how it fits in with what you're learning. Sometimes this bold print will be found later in the book, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Along with the photographs that are provided in a nonfiction text, authors often add a caption. A caption is words that come either under or on top of the picture and describe what is going on in the photograph. It helps us to understand what the photograph is trying to show us. So this caption says that this house is made from many different plant parts. So we know the author wants us to look at this house and recognize that this house is made of plant parts. That's the reason the author put this picture in here. Sometimes we can get new information by reading captions, so we always want to stop and read those because the author is usually giving us some pretty important information or some really cool fact that they want us to know. Throughout the book, on photographs or on illustrations, we can also find labels. Labels tell us the name of something in a picture. So a caption will come either underneath, on the side, on the top of a picture, and it's usually a sentence or two. A label will often be just one word or a short phrase, and it really just tells us the name of something in the picture. And the caption will tell us more about more of a description of what's happening in the picture or why the author included that picture. Labels are just made to give us the vocabulary that we need to have to understand the picture. Another thing that you might find is a diagram. And a diagram helps us to understand the relationship between different items. So in this diagram, it's showing us how oxygen and carbon dioxide go back and forth between plants and humans or animals. So it shows us how plants are helping us. Diagrams can be used to show us the appearance of a structure, or diagrams can be used to show us how something works. Usually toward the end of a book, we will find something called the glossary. The glossary is like a mini dictionary at the end of the book, and it is designed to tell the reader what the words mean in the book. Not every word. Do you remember those bold words we talked about, that bold print? Usually, if there is bold print in the text, those are the words that we will find in the glossary. So when you read the bold print words, you can always come back to the glossary and check to see what the word means. So the author will give you the definition just in case you weren't able to use your context clues to figure out what the word meant within the text. So here's an overview of all of the text features we talked about today. The title, photograph, table of contents, heading, bold print, caption, labels, diagram, and glossary. As you're reading, look for these nonfiction text features and think about how they help you to be a better reader.